Howdy folks, and welcome to your weekly episode of Mingles with Jingles, starting as usual with Wanker of the Week, and this week it's the I don't want to play on this map edition. In this replay we have an FB4207 driver in the corner at the back there. Ironically enough, his name is Infamous. Most scumbags do at least have the common decency to wait until the end of the game before they kill themselves out of sheer spite, but no, not this guy. He just doesn't like playing on Himmelsdorf. He's just turned his tank around, parked it right up against the nearest solid object, and the second that gun loads, he's going to kill himself by firing high explosive at point blank range right into the wall in front of him, and there it is. So there you go, that's how you get a 58% win rate if you're playing artillery. Just play on the maps that you like, and when you get the maps that you don't like, throw all your toys out the pram like a spoiled little princess and have a temper tantrum. Of course, it's not just artillery who get a strop on when they don't like the look of the match that they're in. The Jagdtiger in this game has decided there is far too much artillery on the enemy team for his liking. Oh look, there's a nice stretch of water, I'm going to go and throw myself in it. There's only 2 artillery on the enemy team. Is he serious? Yep, apparently he is. You know what the ideal solution for whiny little bitches like that is? Put them in a time machine and send them back to World of Tanks prior to patch 8.6, when you constantly got into matches like this. And this. And this. And I swear I'm not making this up. This. 2 artillery's too much for you, is it, Princess? You must be new here. But the winner of this week's Wanker of the Week is Ujan123, the guy in the T3485, who's just about to spring into life and randomly start firing, there he is, and is about to start victimising Totti's Churchill Mark 7. His behaviour is, quite frankly, bizarre. I've seen some trolls in World of Tanks, I get my fair share of them myself. But this just doesn't make any sense. He begins by just repeatedly firing into the ground in front of Totti's tank. And Totti is remarkably restrained about it. He even at one point politely asks him if there's anything wrong. Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him, but I don't think there's anything you can help him with. Now, this might be irritating, but he isn't actually doing any harm, so Totti puts up with this guy's shit, right up until the point when he actually damages his tank. Okay, you put one into me, I'm going to put one into you. Don't do it. Seriously, don't. Okay, it bounced, it didn't actually do any damage, so Totti does not retaliate. And that's when things start getting weird. Note the position that guy's in, and note the current clock timer on the battle. That guy's going to be sitting in that exact same position, without moving the turret of the tank, for the next couple of minutes. It's almost as if he's just decided, oh hang on, I'm hungry, and went to make himself a sandwich. So, the guy's no longer bothering him, Totti ignores him, carries on driving the tank, and starts to play the game. Almost exactly 2 minutes later, he lurches back into life. He's obviously had his sandwich and he's remembered he was being an arsehole. And the very first point of damage he does, obviously kills Totti's Churchill, but he instantly turns blue. I suspect this isn't the first time he's done this. So anyway, Mingles with Jingles. And what's been going on this week? Well, those of you who follow me on Facebook will probably be aware that I am taking a break from playing World of Tanks. Now, I need to get this out of the way right at the start of the video while everybody's still paying attention. I haven't quit World of Tanks completely. I am, however, taking a break. I haven't played World of Tanks since Circumflex's live stream last Monday, so I've already had a week off from the game, and I really am feeling the benefit. I decided that I needed to take a break, because I've just been playing so incredibly badly for at least a month now. Those of you who tune in to Quickie Baby or Circumflex's live streams will know exactly what I'm talking about. My performance lately has just sucked, and I'm not having fun. So I'm taking a break from the game, recharging my batteries, coming back reinvigorated. And it's not just World of Tanks, and it's not the first time I've done this with World of Tanks. I've taken breaks from games before when I'm just not enjoying them anymore. And I do recommend that if you find yourself in the same situation, you do this as well. There's nothing worse than just playing a game purely because you feel that you have to carry on playing it, especially if you're not doing very well. Luckily for me, I am in the position where I don't have to keep playing something that I'm no longer enjoying. I don't like... This is another one of the many reasons why I don't live stream my own World of Tanks and War Thunder, because I get burnt out on these games, and occasionally I have to just stop, take a break, and do something else for a while. If I was live streaming, I wouldn't really be in the position to do that. While we're on the subject, rumour control announcement number 2. This does not mean I am no longer going to be putting World of Tanks videos up. You're still going to get your videos. In fact, you've probably got more World of Tanks videos since I stopped playing World of Tanks last week than when I was still live streaming twice a week with Quickie Baby and Circumflexes. The videos are still coming every day. Don't worry about that. And I'll be playing again within a week or two. That's usually all it takes for me to recharge my batteries and get the taste for playing again. In case you're wondering, by the way, yes, this is a very old replay. I'm not entirely sure what version of World of Tanks it is, but it's from before I started using colorblind mode. The enemy team are all in red. It's been a long time since I played a game with this option enabled. For people who have been asking, by the way, they say, oh, I like the way you've got the colour of the enemy team. What mod is that? It's not a mod. Go into World of Tanks, go into the graphics settings, and there's a little tick box which says colorblind mode. Just tick that, and the enemy team turns, well, blue, purple, I don't know. But that's how I get the enemy team not being red. It looks bizarre for me now. I've been playing in colorblind mode for so long that watching a game like this, an old match with the enemy team in red, just looks weird for me now. And no, I really should have a frequently asked questions file for this. No, I am not colorblind. I do this because I probably have a lot of colorblind viewers, and so this is just to make it easier for them to follow the action when I put a replay up. And funnily enough, that brings us right on to the next issue, which is stuff that I really should be doing better by now. Things like having a frequently asked questions list for those frequently asked questions, and getting back into Airsoft, and putting new Airsoft videos up now that the weather's warmed up. And it all really boils down to making better and more efficient use of my bloody time, something that I am notoriously bad at. See, my major problem at the moment is that Sundays are a really, really busy day. What I generally have to do on the Sunday is Sunday's World of Tanks or War Thunder video and Monday's Mingles with Jingles video. And the reason I have to do Monday's video on Sunday is because on Monday I'm live streaming, and I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to get the video produced, rendered, uploaded and processed before I have to reserve my internet connection for playing World of Tanks on Twitch with Circumflexes on a Monday. Same deal on a Thursday when I'm playing with Quickie Baby, but it's not quite as crucial on the Thursday because I don't have a mammoth Mingles with Jingles video to do on a Thursday. And of course, if I'm going to start airsofting on Sundays, that's going to be even less time free on Sunday to get Sunday's video and Monday's Mingles with Jingles done. So basically, I'm going to have to learn to get all my shit in one sock and sort stuff out well in advance. And I'm not very good at that. So, well, what I might have to start doing is one of two things. Either I stop doing Mingles with Jingles on a Monday and move it to another day of the week. But I don't really want to do that because I don't know about you lot, but I feel like Monday is Mingles with Jingles day. And particularly you guys who watch this at work, you know, when you should be working. I feel that, you know, you look forward to this. Monday's a shitty day of the week, and if you can watch this at work, then, you know, it's something nice to be doing at work on a Monday. So I'd like to keep doing Mingles with Jingles on Mondays. What may have to happen is I just stop doing videos on Sundays altogether. Not quite sure how we're going to deal with it, but the second option is probably going to be the most likely one, at least as long as the weather's warm and the airsofting season is back. But we'll see how it goes, and I'll let you know what I'm going to do. Or there could even be a third option. Instead of doing my normal mammoth 30-minute long World of Tanks videos, Sunday could just be a quick single 10-minute long replay video. You know, that might also be an option. We'll see. So what else have I been up to this week? Well, even though I haven't been playing World of Tanks with Quickie Baby and Circumflexes on their live streams, I have been jumping into their live streams to chat, and in Circumflex's case, to troll him mercilessly. He did a 36-hour World of Tanks Twitch live stream marathon. Yep, that's right. During a ×5 XP special weekend event, he played World of Tanks for 36 hours. I bet him €20 he wouldn't last 8 hours. I lost that bet. But it was totally worth losing the bet because it was a fantastic live stream. It was absolutely hilarious from start to finish. There were a whole bunch of live stream regulars who chipped in on TeamSpeak or platooned with him to keep him going for the 36 hours. And also, you know, to mercilessly take the piss out of him about all the sleep we were getting, and he wasn't. And appropriately enough, that brings us on to the first question of this week's Mingles with Jingles. This is from Hayden Jensen. He wants to know, Jingles, have you ever considered uploading some of the best games on your live streams? Because of the time difference, he's never able to watch them, and he finds it would be interesting to hear my tactics and discussions live as things are happening. If you don't want to upload them, what are the reasons why? Good question, and I'll tell you why I don't make a habit of uploading any of the games that I play when I'm live streaming with Circumflexes or Quickie Baby. First of all, mostly they suck. But I do have the occasional good game, and I have the occasional very good game. However, I don't, as a rule, do live versions. I don't record while I'm live streaming for one very good reason. It just wouldn't be polite. You see, the thing is, they're not my live streams, and Quickie Baby and Circumflexes have never said, I don't want you to upload live recordings of the games that I play with them. But I just wouldn't do it out of respect for them. Live streaming is their thing, it's not my thing. I'm just a guest on their Twitch channels. Live streaming is what they do, and their livelihood to a large part depends on people coming to their Twitch channel and watching them play live. And if I bring a certain number of subscribers along to watch me play with them, then, you know, that's good for them, but it's their livelihood, not mine. I don't get anything out of joining them on Twitch than, you know, the fun of playing with them. For me to start taking live recordings of their Twitch TV and uploading it on my YouTube channel would effectively be me taking money away from them, and that just wouldn't be right, so that's why I don't do it. I'll use the replays of the games that I play with them and put my own after-action commentary on those replays and then put that up on YouTube. You know, that's what I do. But the actual live gameplay, the banter, the chit-chat that goes backwards and forwards between myself and Quickie Baby, or myself and Circon when I'm playing with him, I wouldn't touch that. That's not mine to use. That belongs to the guys who host the live streams. So that's why I don't do it. The only time you'll see me uploading a video of live Twitch live streaming commentary is if I'm doing it to try to help promote the guy that I'm live streaming with. For example, Origin, or Squirefly, or a WBE886. I did some War Thunder with them recently. And I'll put video of that up purely as a way of helping them get some more subscribers. Quickie Baby and Circon, on the other hand, well, they don't need any help from me to get any bigger than they already are. I'm purely there on their live streams as a guest. However, if you do want to see some of the live streams that I've done with Quickie Baby and Circumflexes, I know that Quickie Baby in particular, anytime he does a live stream, you can always catch it as a recorded video on his Twitch channel after the event. So if you can't tune in because of time differences when it's actually happening live, you can, even though you're not watching it live, you can see the video of the entire live stream on Quickie Baby's Twitch TV channel. It's not live, but it's a live recording, so that would at least satisfy your needs. And it's not taking anything away from Quickie Baby because you can't tune in to watch him live in the first place due to the time zone differences. So there's that solution there for you. Of course, the other solution would be for me to get off my fat lazy ass and try to get past tier 5 on my North American World of Tanks server account. That way I'd be able to platoon up and live stream with Side Strafe, and probably in a more friendly time zone for you. But if I'm being brutally honest, it's probably going to be a while before that happens. In fact, the chances are we're probably going to see server roaming, and I'll be able to play in my EU account on the North American server before I get past tier 5 on my North American account. But you never know your luck. We shall have to see. Speaking of side strafe, that brings me on to the next question. And a lot of people have been asking, Jingles, what books have you been reading lately? Side strafe recommended a book to me. It's called Armoured Thunderbolt. It's written by Steven Zaloga, who is probably the most preeminent specialist tank historian in America. And he writes a fantastic book. The book, Armoured Thunderbolt, is specifically about the M4 Sherman tank fighting in the European theatre of operations during the course of the Second World War, and this guy really knows his stuff. There are some fantastic statistical analysis of combat engagements with M4 Shermans that this guy goes into in great detail, and it goes a long way towards dispelling some of the myths about what a terrible tank the Sherman was. You've got the popular myths about the Sherman that it burst into flame all the time because it used gasoline fuel rather than diesel fuel, and this is something that I thought was true until I started reading up about it. And it's probably something that you've heard bandied around the internet and on TV and whatever, and it's just not true. There was 3 different engines that the Sherman used. Only one of them was a gasoline engine, the other 2 were diesel. There were actually a couple of very good reasons as to why Shermans would so often be destroyed by fire. And the first and foremost reason was because of the ammunition stowage. The ammo racks were located in the side of the tank where the armour wasn't very good. This problem was solved in theatre by the addition of applique armour plates, specifically on the side of the tank, to cover where the ammo stowages were. And at the factories, later versions of the Sherman were produced with the ammo stowage removed and placed in the floor of the tank in a wet stowage. Another very, very good reason, which I covered in a previous video as to why so many Shermans were burnt out, was because the Germans would keep firing at them until they burst into flames. The Germans were fighting a retreating battle. They didn't have the luxury of recovering their own tanks that had been knocked out because they were going backwards and couldn't recover their tanks. The Americans were advancing, and of course they could recover knocked out Shermans. If the turret had been hit, they just put a new turret on it. If the hull had been hit, they just put a new hull on it and use the existing turret. So German gunners, whenever they had the chance, would specifically keep shooting knocked out Shermans until they burst into flames to deny the Americans the opportunity to recover and recycle the tanks. Another popular old myth is that it would take 3 Shermans to knock out 1 Panther, as if, you know, that's how tank battles were fought. Everybody just lined up at opposite ends of the map and shot at each other until one side had won. The number of strictly tank-on-tank engagements fought between Shermans and Panthers, or Shermans and Tigers, or Shermans and Panzer IVs, or whatever, was vanishingly small. Battles just didn't happen like that in the Second World War. They were combined arms battles. The tanks would always be supported, or almost always be supported, by infantry, anti-tank guns, artillery, tactical air forces. And one thing that the Americans were not in short supply of was very, very good artillery. Lots of infantry support, lots and lots and lots of tactical air support, something that the Germans didn't have. So whenever Shermans were involved in combat with Tigers and Panthers and Panzer IVs, they weren't just fighting alone against them, they had overwhelming artillery and air support. So the whole idea that it would take 3 Shermans to knock out 1 Panther just sounds great on paper, but it never actually happened like that. Or if it did happen like that, it happened on such a small scale that it was statistically completely irrelevant. Another popular old myth that everybody loves throwing around about the Sherman is that the tank crews hated driving it, and again, this is just not true. It wasn't until the war had been going on for 5 years, late 1944, before the tank crews, British, American and Canadian Sherman tank crews, started grumbling about the quality of the Sherman when going up against German armour. The scale of the threat was constantly being over-exaggerated because the Panther and the Tiger had such a fearsome reputation. The Panther's Pak 43 75mm gun and the 88mm gun on the Tiger, well, practically any time a Sherman got knocked out, everybody just assumed a Tiger had done it. When in fact, the Panther and the Tiger were available on the Western Front in such small numbers as to be practically insignificant. the overwhelming majority of armoured vehicles available to the German armies on the Western Front were not Tigers, they were not Panthers, they weren't even Panzer IVs, they were tank destroyers. Tank destroyers armed with 75mm guns. The one single weapon available to German forces on the Western Front, and for that matter the Eastern Front, that inflicted more tank casualties, more armoured vehicle casualties than any other weapon was the Pak-40, introduced in 1942, the Pak-40 towed, horse-drawn 75mm anti-tank gun. Not the Tiger, not the Panther, but well camouflaged and skillfully operated towed anti-tank guns. And one other thing that I learned from Mr. Zaloga's book that astonished me was that even when Tigers and Panthers did go up against Shermans, the alleged quality of the various tanks involved had next to nothing to do with who won the engagement. It wasn't technological superiority, it wasn't quality of crew training, it wasn't even tactical doctrine. It was a lot more simple than that. It all came down to who fired first. This next part I'm going to paraphrase directly from the book. I've got it open in front of me now. In the spring of 1945, the US Army's Ballistics Research Lab conducted the first major American study of tank versus tank fighting in an effort to determine which factors led to battlefield success. They looked at the records of the US 3rd and 4th Armoured Divisions, which saw as much or more tank versus tank fighting than any other American divisions. A total of 98 tank versus tank engagements from August through to December 1944 were identified and quantified, including the Arrow Corps engagements and 33 separate skirmishes from the Battle of the Bulge. The first thing they noticed was that the US Army fought very few major tank versus tank battles. Most of them were small unit engagements, averaging 9 tanks on the American side and 4 on the German side. The study concluded that the single most important factor in tank versus tank fighting was which side spotted the enemy first, fired first, and hit first. This rule meant that the defender had a clear advantage, since the defending tanks were typically stationary in a well-chosen ambush position. The defender was more likely to spot the enemy tanks first because the likely avenues of approach were under surveillance. Furthermore, greater familiarity with the local terrain meant that the defender usually had the ranges to certain objectives plotted in advance, which was a very important ingredient in making certain that the first round fired actually struck its target. By contrast, attacking forces were usually on the move, which often led to a lack of familiarity with the terrain in the battle area, difficulty spotting the defending enemy tanks, and reduced accuracy because of problems with quickly establishing the accurate range to the target. Of all the incidents studied by BRL, defenders fired first 84% of the time. When defenders fired first, the attackers suffered 4.3 times more casualties than the defender. On the relatively few occasions when the attackers fired first, the defenders suffered 3.6 times more casualties than the attackers. The side that spotted first and hit first usually had an overwhelming advantage in the first critical minute of the fight, since it didn't only fire first, but neighbouring friendly tanks also tended to fire shortly after, overwhelming the enemy force with a sudden volley of fire. Tank versus tank engagements tended to be short, violent affairs, with the losing side quickly withdrawing rather than facing utter destruction. Ambush from a concealed position was the ideal ingredient in winning a tank versus tank firefight. A similar British study reached exactly the same conclusion, finding that in 70% of the 83 actions that were studied, the side that shot first won. The British study also concluded that when one side had numerical superiority and also engaged first, it was invariably successful. Another grim statistic showed that the side that was ambushed had very little chance of regaining the initiative, and that their survivability fell by half every 6 seconds. So, if all of this is true, and before we all start arguing about it, let's for the moment just assume that it is. If all this is true, and crew training, tactical doctrine, technical superiority of the various different tanks involved is almost completely irrelevant, why the hell did the Sherman have such a bad reputation? Well, Mr. Zaloga has the answer for that, and it's actually pretty obvious if you think about it. The The Sherman, more often than not, was used in offensive operations, often against organised German defences where the Wehrmacht had the opportunity to position anti-tank guns and armoured fighting vehicles along likely avenues of approach. Under circumstances like this, the Germans had the distinct tactical advantages in tank fighting, and the US Army did suffer heavy tank casualties as a result. As I mentioned earlier, Sherman tank crews were constantly complaining about having to face Tigers and 88mm guns. But the technological imbalance wasn't the real problem. Tigers were rare in the European theatre of operations, as were 88mm guns. The most common enemy was the 75mm Pak-40, and its armoured fighting vehicle equivalents, whether mounted on the Panzer IV, the Stug 3, or a whole wide range of Panzerjägers. The German 75mm gun could kill the Sherman frontally from standard combat ranges of 1,000 yards or less. It wasn't the technological imbalance that caused so many Sherman tank losses, it was the tactical circumstances that so often gave the Wehrmacht the see-first, hit-first advantage. The opposite was true as well. The Wehrmacht suffered disproportionate tank casualties on the occasions when it tried to conduct offensive operations against the US Army, such as the Panzer-Lehr's attack at La Désert in July 1944, the Avranches counterattack near Mortain in August 1944, and the Lorraine Panzer offensives in September 1944. Ironically enough, the Sherman took such a beating from late 1944 onwards not because it was a bad tank, but because it had the ironic misfortune of being on the winning side, and was therefore the tank that was doing the attacking. On those occasions where the Germans counterattacked, their tanks suffered disproportionate losses against Shermans. Not a lot of people know that. So yeah, that's Armoured Thunderbolt by Steven Zaloga. A fantastic book. Eternally grateful to Sidestrafe for recommending that book to me, and I highly recommend it to all of you. Just in case anybody feels like getting their own copy of the book, and I hope you do, I'll put the details of the book down below in the video description. You may have noticed from the sheer number of War Thunder Ground Forces videos that I've been putting up lately that I am having a lot of fun playing War Thunder Ground Forces. Surprisingly enough, simulator battles, which are a lot more fun than I was expecting them to be. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, my Battle of Kursk video, which was just epic. Massive tank battle, huge map. Somebody, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, but somebody made a suggestion on, I think it was on the Kursk battle video, as to why I'm having so much fun playing simulator battles in War Thunder Ground Forces as opposed to playing realistic battles or arcade battles or even playing World of Tanks. And it was something that had absolutely not occurred to me until he pointed it out. You see, the thing about War Thunder Ground Forces simulator battles is that you don't see the names of enemy tanks. Unlike arcade and realistic battles, there's no red name over the top of an enemy tank. There's just a tank. So nobody knows they're shooting at me. Well, that's not strictly true. Once you score a hit on the target and you actually do some damage to them, you get a damage report telling you that, you know, you have done this much damage to Panzer IV-C Jingles. But until you actually score a hit on the target, you have no idea who he is. And I do get singled out for special attention. I know it happens. I don't really much care if you don't believe me. The very last game of World of Tanks I played, I was in my KV-2, and right at the start of the match, all of the enemy artillery said, "Oh look, it's Jingles, ho ho ho." And I knew what was coming. And sure enough, I held back and I made sure I was not the first tank spotted because I knew what was coming. Nobody got shot at by artillery until my sixth sense went off, and within seconds I'd been hit by 3 artillery. It happens. It's an occupational hazard of doing what I do for a living. But I have to admit, the realisation that it's going to be impossible to single me out for special attention in War Thunder simulator battles it's a mighty compelling reason to keep playing War Thunder simulator battles. Does this mean I'm going to stop playing World of Tanks? No, of course not. I've taken a break from World of Tanks, not because I don't like World of Tanks, but because I'm just shit at World of Tanks lately, so I need to, you know, get back into the swing of things, and I'm taking a break for that. I still think World of Tanks is a great game. I'm still going to be playing World of Tanks. You're still going to be getting World of Tanks videos. I will not, however, be playing World of Tanks tonight on Circumflex's livestream, because I'm taking a break. But I will be joining him an hour earlier than normal for a spot of War Thunder Ground Forces, and he'll be playing World of Tanks with Sir Foch once we're done there. We'll be starting an hour earlier than normal, 5 PM UK time, however that translates into whatever time zone you currently reside in. And before we finish off, I just have one final message. Let me just check my notepad. This is from Red Shock Trooper on YouTube. He wanted me to pass a message on to his friend Phil, who also goes by the name Emerald Radiance. Phil, you listening? Red Shock Trooper wants you to know that no matter how bad things are right now, things can and will get better. Chin up, your friends have got your back. That's it for this week, folks. Take care.
Goodbye.